Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Medical Myths, the show about what not to do with your body. And today I've got a special guest, Forrest Valkai, who, if you don't already know who this is, you're missing out because his channel is way bigger than mine is. And if you've heard of me, you probably heard of him. But this topic today is it's not technically medicine, but it is medically adjacent because I did take a lot of anatomy in my time in med school and in undergrad, and I was looking through, I was looking through Answers in Genesis because they have a lot of terrible articles about the human body, and I found out that they have a curriculum, a homeschool curriculum about anatomy and physiology, and I wanted to buy it, but I also didn't want to pay them money, so I didn't. So I found something even worse when I was doing that. But Forrest here has some expertise in a field that is related to what we are talking about today. So would you like to introduce yourself to my audience?
Yeah, sure. For those who don't know me, hi, my name's Forrest. My degrees are in general biology, integrative biology with an organismic concentration, liberal arts with more biology credits, education, and then also I'm a master's student finishing my degree in bioanthropology, studying the biology and evolution of humans specifically. I'm an evolutionary biologist, basically, is what I do. I focus on evolution. I focus on bioanthro. I focus on where things come from and why we are the way that we are. During my undergrad, I focused a lot on biomed as well. So as you and I were just talking before the show started, I am not a doctor in any way. I don't want to be, but like I love learning about like anatomy, physiology, medicine, pathophysiology, like what can go wrong with the body, because that helps us understand how it works in the first place and how, where it came from and the history of it. And so that's my background. That's what I go for. And I am very familiar with Answers in Genesis as well. They're a barrel of laughs. They're always fun to talk about because like what kills me about them is they always make something that when they present it, they always make it sound like this little difference of opinion. They always try to put it out as this thing like, oh, these evolutionists, they don't really understand the details of the thing that they are, experts in, that they study for a living. And when you really look at it this way, it's actually a little bit different. And then you're like, all right, maybe you kind of start to, all right. And then also there were unicorns and you're fuck, what? It just gets crazy so fast. So I'm stoked to death today to see what's going to go on with these guys.
Yeah, I've noticed with them and probably with everybody that we debunk on this channel, they like to take half truths and they'll say something that is, for the most part, correct. Granted, their level of nuance is minimal, so they describe things as being very black and white. But they'll take things that the common public would kind of understand, and then they use that to make these very out there claims. It's like, okay, yeah, the common public would not understand why this is incorrect because they've framed it with this thing that is true. They're like, oh yeah, that logically could make sense, but it's not actually how the world works, and you wouldn't know it's not unless you study it. And even there have been times when I've questioned my own self, even with medical claims. I'm like, oh, that sounds logically fine, and then I think about it, like, wait, no, I actually know how this works, and it's not. That's not at all how this works.
I was almost sold, and then I thought about it for 3 fucking seconds, and now I realize that's not how anything works. Yeah, that's very often the case. And that's the thing with a lot of these things. I in the opening, you said pseudoscience, and then you said pseudoscience like 5 more times. Talk about homeopathy and faith healing and all these things, and that really is what they all boil down to. It's a bunch of flashy words that sound to a lay person, to someone who isn't taking the time to study these things, which. Why would most people? That's not their fault. It sounds like something that might make sense. You know what I mean? I remember when I was looking up into oh gosh, all these ideas like the foot pads you stick to the bottom of your foot and they draw out all the toxins. And it's like, okay, first of all, define what a toxin is, and don't just say metal or chemical. Like that fucking means anything. You have to give me an example of an actual toxin, and also. What's going to come out through the thickest skin on my body, the sole of my foot? That's where it's going to escape from. Nowhere else, not from my perfectly good sweat glands. My liver works too hard to be insulted like this. My feet are going to do it. It's craziness.
I saw something today, and this just is like small sidetrack, but something today about soap. like as a soap
Mhm.
advertisement, and the clever wording with they're gonna frame this other soap as a chemical, so that's bad. Like, don't buy soap with chemicals, but our
Yeah,
soap
yeah.
has nutrients because nutrients aren't chemicals apparently.
Oh,
But
it's literally just butter.
use
It's
a different word, and you have a totally different audience buying into it.
Mhm. Absolutely. It's so ridiculous, and like that's just what kills me is that it's something that, these are scary words for a lot of people. Things like chemicals, things like toxins, things like, whatever. And like there are reasons to be worried about certain things, but if you really genuinely think that experts in these fields haven't thought of this shit. And like I saw one recently, it was a cellulite destroying like cream or something. It was like a lotion to take away cellulite. And I'm like, how the fuck is this lotion going to realign my skin ligaments to make them
Right.
not pull my skin down? Like, what is that? Like, that makes no. But if somebody hears that, they're like, it's skin's doing a thing. I'm gonna put it on the skin, and the skin will do a different thing. And like, that's why I'm so happy for people like you who are able to break down this insane, complicated bullshit for people who need it. That's why we're educators, man. It's so important.
Yeah. So we're gonna go into this PDF, but before I do, are you before we even read this, because maybe we'll be convinced differently, but do you think that young Earth creationism or any biblical content at all, do you
Mm.
think that should be present in a science classroom?
Yes, actually, it should be taught in the history of science. People need to know
Okay,
what you
fair.
used to believe. We need to say that, like, at one time we believed in the great chain of being, and then we discovered fossils, and now we don't believe that anymore. At one time we believed that the sun went around the earth, and then we discovered the geocentric model, and now we don't do that anymore. At one time we thought that the earth was special and unique and the sun was special and unique, and then we got into astronomy, and now we don't do that anymore. At one time we just we believed all these different things, and here's why, and now we don't believe those things. So for like, we need to know that, because that's a really important part of education. But as far as like actually teaching literally any part of the Bible at all as being truthful, no, that has no place in a science class whatsoever, because even the parts of it that have some modicum of truth aren't a science-based thing. That would be a historical thing. So just like, no, very, very no.
Yeah. Let's see what Answers in Genesis has to say. And I guess I scrolled down a little bit. So here we have a PDF from the Answers Research Journal, because they have their own journal. And we see this a lot with them at Answers in Genesis, that they will format their
Hmm.
opinion pieces to look like a research study. This is not a study.
Yep.
This is an opinion piece. This is a
What
proposal for an education method.
What's
But
really good about this is you can catch that from at the very, very, very top. It says answersingenesis.org. So like,
mhm.
anybody who knows how to read a scientific paper would immediately know how to dismiss this. But like, you're right, this is absolutely deliberately misleading.
Right, and this is from 2018, so a few years ago, but they're still pushing for this stuff. So this
Yep.
hasn't really gone away from them, and this is written by an assistant professor in the Department of Kinesiology and Allied Health. I don't know what qualifications this person has other than they're an assistant professor at this Christian
At
university. I
Yeah,
don't
I looked it
know.
up. Yeah, Cedarville University is a a private Baptist university. I'm gonna check to see if they're accredited, just in case.
Yeah, good plan.
Just because
uh,
like they might be.
yeah,
They are accredited by the Higher Learning Commission, so there's something for them. They are just,
okay.
not a science institution. They're not a research facility. They're not.
Mhm.
They're a private Baptist college.
So I'll quickly read the abstract, and I don't know if I'll read like the introduction because they just spout off like how they're going to integrate faith and
Uh huh.
science, which is not something that you should be doing. But their abstract says, "We have been created fearfully and wonderfully by our Creator God, and the human body showcases God's intricate design." God's a shitty
So,
designer, if that's true.
so many no. So many no. Who starts with the word fearfully and wonderfully? That's abusive sounding. And also, showcases God's intricate design. Who the fuck designed the breathing tube right next to the eating tube? Whose choice was
Right.
that? The God, apparently. Oh, God.
Yeah, I did a video series that I want to get back to. It's a series about why the human body sucks. I have a couple
Yeah.
videos so far. The first one was about the elbow and why it's a god would use the worst class of lever, but not only the worst class of lever, but the worst type of the worst class of lever, like the absolutely most inefficient lever for the elbow. And that's
It's
fine.
so frustrating. What gets
And
me
then,
is like
yeah,
a lot like the way that our muscles attach, like dug up into different stuff, and the way that they stretch, like that you'd think that the muscles to do this would be like in here, but they're down the fuck here. Like, what's going on with that? And then this has to connect all the way into this to make this happen. It's madness. It's
right. Yeah.
so many
And you think
rooms for
about
problems.
And you think about things like metabolism is another one I was getting into. Like metabolism relies on inefficiency. It has to be
Hmm.
inefficient to happen, which is hilarious. So you can go. I still part two waiting to come out. But you look at the transport mechanisms because they don't teach you about shuttle systems in even undergrad
Hmm.
biology and biochem a lot of the time, and then you find out, wait, hold on, the NAD cannot move from the cytoplasm to the mitochondria. It has to use a shuttle system that
Has to
like
be
makes
carried.
it more inefficient than it
Yeah.
already was. It's a nightmare.
That's the same thing I feel about fucking plants. Because like if photosynthesis were an efficient process, plants could get up and walk around someday. Like they would be crazy. But like especially like C3 plants, the way that they're just so prone to accidentally binding oxygen and making fucking poison, and then they have to like really quickly like fix that. It's just, oh man.
Yeah, so then they go on to say, in this paper, I present a design approach to the study of human anatomy and physiology from a biblical worldview. I establish a theology of the body as a foundation for the study of human structure and function. I then discussed key repeating themes in the human body systems as evidence for design and offer suggestions for biblical integration in the study of these themes. I also highlight the concept of, oh yeah, what do you got? What do you got for
I was
that?
just gonna say, like, does that not sound? I establish a theology of the body. Does that not sound
Right.
unbelievably arrogant to say? Like to say that, like, this is the holy divinity of the human form that I have found. Like, this is making such monumental promises. 2 sentences in to the fucking abstract. Like,
Right, and
wow.
small detail, but,
Yeah.
with these people that are Bible literalists, usually, I mean, I don't know exactly which, denomination, Elizabeth Sled comes from. I mean, I know this is a
Mm,
Baptist university, so I don't know her
yeah. Yeah.
exact beliefs, but in most, churches that are biblical literalists, they would usually not let a woman, um, establish a
Right.
theology.
Right.
So, small point, but
That's a thing. That's honestly, I hadn't thought about that. That's a good point, though.
I also highlight the concept of over design in the human body as evidence for a great designer. I'm curious what
What
they
the
mean
fuck
by
is over
over
design?
design.
What is that? Weird.
I conclude the
Hmm.
paper with a discussion of ways that a design approach to the study of anatomy and physiology could inspire praise, promote deeper
Oh,
reflection on God and his creation, and encourage a holistic view of stewardship of the body.
I don't like any part of that as like a medical thing. None of
I
that
don't
sounds good.
either. Well,
I,
and they
like,
even in their introduction that we're not gonna read, I think they talk about this is so important because of the fact that they're teaching people who are going to become healthcare professionals.
yeah, that's that. Like, especially that idea of stewardship of the body. I know they're just using some biblical terms here, but like, if a doctor ever told me to be a better steward of my body, I would leave. They could say the exact same thing: take better care of yourself, and I'd be like, yeah, but just using words like that, these outdated, very weird, very obviously like laced with religious fundamentalism like that, it just immediately sows distrust in me. You know what I mean? It's weird.
And this is exceptionally problematic. Like, people could say, well, what's the problem with uh being a theist, being a Christian in a healthcare space? And like, so what is the problem with teaching other Christians who are going into healthcare this kind of method? And I'm seeing problems with this within my own university, because this is how you get people that are anti-abortion, which we know that
Mhm.
abortion is the medical gold standard of care for a
Yeah.
lot of cases. And the problem is,
Mhm.
we've had on my own campus, we have a medical students for choice chapter, and we operate with the evidence-based guidelines within that organization. But there was a club that was trying to get started on our campus, that was a pro-life organization. And the problem is, when you start having that kind of organization, and they said that they wanted to have political influence, which is a huge problem,
Mhm.
and then also that they wanted to ban abortions, which is
Mhm.
directly goes against the medical standards of care. So you can't have a
Yep.
medical university
Exactly.
operating against the gold standard of care for people. That is
Yep.
violation of the Hippocratic Oath. So
Yep.
this is what happens when we teach stuff like this. This is not
Mhm.
benign in any sense.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like when you have these people coming out and saying about fucking trans people that we have to bar medical care for them until they're 25 or something like this. It's like you are strictly just putting your religion and your politics above evidence, and it's okay in this country because it's the Bible. If there was
Mhm.
any fucking like an Islamic organization that came in trying to change women's health care because of what it says in the Quran, there would be an uproar. It would be absolute chaos, pandemonium out here.
Yep.
But because it is evangelical Christians, white evangelical Christians specifically, saying these things, all of a sudden, this is something that needs to be serious discourse. And we need to talk about who gets rights when it comes to their own body. It's just, man, this is such a deeply insidious thing that this person is doing by publishing this, especially in this format, like we were talking about a minute ago. And
Mhm.
like, I don't even know if they realize how much harm they're doing by putting things like this out there.
Yeah. Let's read a little bit about what the theology of the body is.
Oh,
And
fuck.
I'll probably read a chunk of this right away, just so,
Yeah.
because I could see us spending an entire episode on just this one section. This is
It's
a
freaking ugh.
pretty long PDF. So they say a theological understanding of the body provides a starting point for biblical integration in anatomy and physiology courses. Theology is a compilation of fundamental beliefs about God, creation, the human person, the person and work of Christ, salvation, the church and its mission, and the end times. Christians
I
must
don't
honor
feel like that's actually
theology.
the definition of theology.
It's not. This is only referring to a Christian theology as well.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's just the study of religion, right? The study of the nature
Yeah.
of God and religious belief is what comes up on Google, which, I'm
Mm.
sure if you actually take a theological theory class, it would be a little bit more of a nuanced definition than that. But I certainly don't think that theology is a compilation of beliefs about God and creation and all these things. And the person and work of Christ specifically as a
Mm.
function of theology. Like, she's not saying Christian theology, just theology in general is this.
Mhm.
And like, I don't know if this sticks, man. I don't know if I think that's a
Yeah.
really, really big claim. Ugh.
Yeah, and then she says she's gonna lay down the foundation, so I can kinda skip over that. So the body is an essential physical aspect of the personal reality of human beings. That was a very awkward way to say that. The material
Mm.
component of human nature. The material physical body is distinct from, but closely connected with, the immaterial component, the soul or the spirit. Human beings
Okay.
exist.
No citation on that part, though.
Nope.
The,
Nope.
the, the body is a physical aspect of the personal reality of human beings. Weird way of saying like identity, weird sentence
Mm,
structure in general. And then also, by the way, we have a soul, and then there's no source. Which, granted, I guarantee Allison 2009 and George 2016 are bullshit sources. But like at least
mm.
they're sources, you know? I'm actually going to check really quick. I'm just going to look down here at the reference section. So Allison 2019 is from the Southern Baptist Journal of Theology. So that could actually be a thing. What was the that could actually be a scholarly work of theology. What was the other one? George 2016. Gnostic liberalism from the book or from the journal First Things. Not sure what that one's all about. She cites the Encyclopedia Britannica in here. What the fuck?
All right.
I'm sorry. I apologize. I just thought, whoa.
No, always look at the sources, because like if you go to the sources for any of these articles that they make on Answers in Genesis, it's a mess.
She's citing Answers in Genesis in here as well. She cited like
Totally
another
unbiased.
article from DeWitt 2011, Brain Shaped by Experiences, a pocket guide to the human body, intricate design that glorifies the creator, published by Answers in Genesis. That's one of her citations in here. Jeez, sorry, I apologize. I'm pulling away from the thing. Please continue.
An unbiased. It's a totally unbiased.
Oh no, of course, yeah. No, you wouldn't presume to
bias.
I wonder who edited this.
Right. Human beings exist in an embodied state until death, and when their bodies are resurrected for all eternity at the return of Christ. Only between physical death and Christ's return will human existence be disembodied, when the soul of the believer goes to be with the Lord. And that's just more theology.
I
kind of want to get into some of like their anatomy claims. The creation of the body is a central element of a theology of human embodiment. Human beings have a physical body because God created them to be embodied. Okay.
What does that even mean?
Way to be circular.
You do the thing because God said you do the thing, and that's why you do the thing. What?
Yeah, exactly.
Don't you know?
God created man in his own image, after his likeness. Created in God's image, men and women possess rationality, morality, spirituality, and the capacity to relate to God and other human beings. In Isaiah 43:7, God declared that those whom he formed and made were created for his glory. The body is essential for living a meaningful life that glorifies God as his image bearer. I mean, I agree with them to an extent that the body is essential for living. Yes, right. And the body is essential for living a meaningful life. Yes, because without a body, you cannot have a life.
If God keeps being referred to as he, him here, and he made us in his image, and that includes women, is God non-binary? Is God gender fluid? Is God just kind of like whatever? It's so many questions. So many questions.
Mage Grey Wolf says, so God is an ape. Yes. God
would have
just
to be.
Claiming that God is an ape.
He would have to be. The Southern Baptist Journal of Theology is an academic journal published by the Southern Baptist Theological Seminary. So not a research institution. It's a seminary. And that's who she keeps citing for saying all these claims about the soul. And I looked it up. That paper is in depth, just publish. It's a statement of faith. It goes into a lot of things. I don't know if it's, I haven't like obviously sat here and read it. I just found it, but like she's using it as a citation of scientific reality when she's citing a seminary school. What? It was so weird. She just cited Genesis. I'm sorry. While you were reading that, well, I was looking that up and I just missed the fact that one of her citations is Genesis.
That's hilarious. And this is a professor. Someone's got to teach this professor how to cite sources.
That's what I'm saying. So this person has students.
Right.
What?
And I bet this person, it teaches their students how to cite sources.
That's what it's.
Wow,
this is throwing me off, dude. This is a fucking loop.
Just wait for it. We're getting into gender now.
Oh, fuck.
The scriptures affirm that the created body is a gendered body, created either as a male or female person. The creation mandate to be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth also establishes that sexuality is a significant aspect of gender and therefore of human embodiment.
boy, somebody should really tell the people who wrote my genetics textbook, because like it
Mine
says something
too.
different. Yeah, fuck, man, it says something very different. So does my anthropology textbook. So does the World Health Organization. Shit,
Yeah,
they
I
need to
want
read this paper.
I want any of these people to take a single embryology class because it will mess
Yeah.
up your brain.
Oh.
That's my favorite is when people make these claims and then have never actually studied uh biology, and they like to claim that there's one single factor that will cause you to be a certain sex. I'm like, okay. Do you know what multifactorial means? Like, do
All
you know
right.
that there's more than one thing that leads to this whole congruence of sex, and especially with
Mm-hmm.
sex and gender congruence?
My God.
Yeah, we
Let's see.
we
I'm just gonna
broke
look up.
Forrest already.
This person is what was it? She's a kinesiologist.
We don't know her. She's in the department of kinesiology, but I don't know if she's actually a kinesiologist.
The fact that she's
I'm
teaching.
doubtful. Yeah, I don't
Apply.
know.
I just wanted to double check. Applied kinesiology is a pseudoscience-based technique in alternative medicine claimed to be able to diagnose illness or choose treatment by
Oh.
testing muscles for strengths and weaknesses.
Oh, snap. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So she's
So now
not.
that apply is that applied kinesiology, which may be different from actual kinesiology. So that's what I'm trying to determine, because like I've heard that word before and I
Yes.
can't remember if like that's the pseudoscience one, or if there's like a play on, like when people do like the fascia release things. It's like fascia really is a thing. You don't want to
Yeah.
break it up. That's not, you know what I mean. And so like I'm trying to figure out like if that's what she's doing or not.
Uh,
Kinesiology, allied health.
yeah, she's
It's hard
from.
to say.
Yeah, you don't know. Yeah, because kinesiology is an actual thing.
Right, right. I don't know if
Yeah.
she's like,
Yeah,
oh,
I
who
don't I
knows?
don't
I'm
know
not gonna.
which I don't know which what
I don't
she's
want to
from.
speculate.
Yeah, I have no idea. Um, but the next part gets really fun. As a
Oh, sure.
result of the fall and the curse of death due to sin, the human body exists as a fallen body. The body is influenced by sinful and destructive behaviors, is declining with age, and is vulnerable to sickness, disease, and suffering. This element of a theology of human embodiment is highly relevant to health sciences. Students in these disciplines are preparing for professions in which they will provide care to individuals who experience sickness, injury, and pain as a consequence of the fall. Discussion of the fallen body is applicable in the study of clinical conditions that affect various organs and systems.
That is fucking gross. This person is talking about teaching doctors how
Yep.
to identify the root cause of illness, and it ain't fucking germ theory. Like it's oh yeah, no, of course you're sick. You're evil. Like fucking imagine going into a patient's room and they're like, I'm having these problems, and they're like, well, sorry, bro. 6,000 years ago, your great Grammy ate a fucking fruit. So here you are. Fuck you.
So now you have cancer. Yeah,
So
that's
now, yeah, by
exactly.
the way, as a result.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's something
that's
that
so
that
nasty.
I tweeted yesterday about, specifically related to this, because I'm curious for people who believe that disease and injury and illness are a result of the fall. Did the laws of physics change after the
Mhm.
fall? Because you think of conditions, again, going back to how terrible the elbow is. Like nursemaid's elbow. If you pull too hard on someone's hand or their forearm, you can pop out their elbow. And
Mhm.
that's just due to forces on the elbow and it being a very weak joint. So
Mhm.
did the elbow not have the ability to dislocate
Yeah.
before the fall, and just suddenly physics changed to where now you can apply enough force to the elbow to pop it out?
It was an epigenetic change. That fruit shortened our telomeres so that we would age differently. That's what it was.
So yeah, it shortened the telomeres and then also made our it changed the entire structure of our elbow.
All of our fucking ligaments just became like half the size that they were. We used to be swole, bruh. It used to be fucking huge.
Yeah, and then we wouldn't have any elbow mobility. So the whole point of like having an elbow that can move like that would just be out the
We
window. We
didn't
are way
need
overthinking.
elbows. In our
We
state of perfection, we didn't need elbows. We were able to function as humans without elbows.
right? There's so many
This,
issues with taking all of this literally.
this is so stupid.
Yeah. Uh how much more I guess we can probably
You can
finish
go
up
as
this
long
section.
as you want, bruh. You can go
Yeah,
as long as
I'm
you
like,
want.
because there's so many different sections that I'm like, I'm trying not to like, because I know they're gonna repeat like 800 times about the same thing.
Oh, of course, of
Um,
course. But like,
this
I want to
section
get
should
into
be
as
okay.
many as we can.
Although the physical death of the body is inevitable in a fallen world, the glorious news for Christians is that the return of Christ will result in the resurrection of their bodies. I don't feel like I need to read this paragraph because they're just
That
making assertions.
paragraph, even if like you when it like that paragraph isn't necessary for the article. Like even if this shit was true, that's not you wouldn't put that in that section. You're identifying the problem, you're laying things out. That's just proselytizing. Because the
Mm,
next thing now I get it's she's explaining where disease comes from, and then
mm,
by the way, there's Jesus, and now the rest of this is going back into like different like why would you put that?
right. So here's some more agenda that she's going to put into this. In contrast to a biblical view of human embodiment, a contemporary liberal understanding of the body asserts that human beings are non bodily persons inhabiting non personal bodies. This
What?
view, which has, yeah, I don't ever think I've made that claim.
What is that sentence?
I don't
Who are
know.
the contemporary liberal understanding? And this isn't a fucking medical thing. Who put
Yeah,
what?
yeah, and I don't know any scientist that has claimed that human beings are non bodily persons.
Seriously, and again, no citation there.
Right.
Just no, like this. She is now making a claim about political science. She's talking about this is what this political faction believes. She's saying
Mhm.
crazy things, and she doesn't have a single source on who's saying that where we can verify it.
Yep.
Like that's something that is especially because this is something outside of the scope of the journal she's publishing in and the field
Mhm.
she's working in. That should have 10 citations right there.
Yeah. And they go on to say this view, which has its roots in ancient Gnosticism, sharply divides the material or bodily and the immaterial or spiritual. The material
No
body is
citation
inferior.
for it fucking it's rooted in ancient Gnosticism. No showing of
Yeah, no
that.
citation. It's the soul that matters. This dualistic understanding of the human person has significant moral implications. So now we're gonna make a
That's just
moral
an
argument.
assertion. I'm sorry. I know I keep cutting you off, but that's just a
No,
fucking assertion. It's she
mhm,
says this comes from here and this is what this is all about. The material body is inferior. It's the soul that matters. That you just stated an opinion. Evidence has shown that indeed this is actually something that's more important. But no, just it's the soul. What? What? You can't just do that. You can't just say a
yep.
thing because you wanted to say a thing.
And before you can prove that the soul matters, you have to prove that it exists, and we
This
don't
is
have any
yeah.
evidence of that.
That should be that's citation number one. It like this. I tell you why I hate this so much. This makes me want to go write. Anything that makes me want to write, like, I want to go do better than this. I fucking hate writing. I want to do it better than this.
Right?
Oh,
I'm not even an educator, and I'd like happily take over their class. Like, no, I can teach a class
dude.
better than you can.
Oh, to be a fly on the wall in there. Liberal doctors say that there's this diabetes, but in fact, we know that the soul matters, and the kids are taking notes. Literally, just highlighter all over it. Just says how not to be a doctor.
Wait for it. This gets worse.
Oh
It gets
fuck!
way worse. Individuals who embrace a Gnostic anthropology are more likely to
What?
view some human beings as non-persons, including those in embryonic, fetal, and early infant stages, and those who have underdeveloped or diminished mental capacities. This is disgusting.
What the fuck?
They're also lumping in a fetus. They are equating a fetus and people with disabilities.
Yeah, exactly. Or at least they're accusing us of doing so. So,
Yeah.
like, either they're fucking crazy or they're trying to use this insane bullshit argument that, yes, the mentally handicapped and the unborn, you want to kill them all. Fuck you, dude. What
Like,
is
no,
that?
we don't.
And what the fuck is Gnostic anthropology?
We're coming up with all these made up fields. I mean, in fairness to them, if you make up a field that doesn't exist, you can
You can say it's
technically
whatever you want.
you
Yeah.
can say that they claim whatever because there's
Yeah.
nobody to argue with you about it.
The technological fascio-theists all believe in a flat Earth. Just ask them. What?
Right. Yeah. And now we're getting contemporary Gnostic liberalism provides the foundation
is
for the
that?
practices of abortion, infanticide, euthanasia, and the use and destruction of human embryos for biomedical stem cell research. Furthermore,
I'm
it gets better.
just
It
gonna
gets
look up
better.
contemporary Gnostic liberalism and see if that's a fucking thing on Wikipedia.
It gets better. Furthermore, body-soul dualism has led to the rejection of marriage as a male-female union, the redefinition of marriage, and transgenderism. So
They say transgenderism as if it's a fucking religion. Like, I converted to transgenderism.
They just put, like, in this one paragraph, they put all of their political viewpoints in this one paragraph.
Seriously, this like, cite Fox News, and there that's what you need.
Oh man, I've been getting so many recommendations from Fox News lately. It's not even funny. That's an off-topic thing. It's what happens when you end up Googling all this stuff.
Oh my god, I found the thing that she cited. I just looked up Gnostic liberalism because I have no idea what that is. And I cited Gnostic liberalism definition, and the first thing that comes up is Gnostic liberalism by Robert P. George. And I was like, huh, that sounds familiar. And it's published in a website called First Things. That's what she cited. That's George 2016. That was one of her sites. Gnostic liberalism, George 2016. This is a website called First Things. Let me look up. Hold on a second. I'm going to look up what the about section of this website really quick. The about section of this website says, the Institute on Religion and Public Life is a 501c3 nonprofit and the publisher of First Things. It was founded by this guy who is a Lutheran pastor, blah, blah, blah. He's got all these emeritus lecturers and whatnot. And that's it. It's a magazine. It's a Lutheran magazine. That's what she's citing here. And here, sure enough, in this article, the idea that human beings are non-bodily persons inhabiting non-personal bodies. What the fuck does that mean? What are you talking about? So she's citing a magazine. This isn't even a scholarly article, a theological thing, a statement of faith. The statement of faith was better because the statement of faith
Right.
at least was like a unifying thing for a group of people. She's citing a magazine to talk about medical science. What is that?
I get all of my medical standards of care from magazines, didn't you know?
Yeah. I read in Time that you need to be drinking more zinc.
Oh man, the whole zinc thing.
Fuck, dude.
I need to do a whole episode on zinc. I did one about vitamin D not too long ago. My God, that was fun. On vitamin C too. Oh man. Yeah, that's a whole thing.
It's
so
what
apparently
scares me is when people use fucking like lipid soluble vitamins, and they're like, I'm just gonna take just an ass load of vitamin A. I'm just gonna load up on it for my immune system. Like, bro, you are going to lose your eyes and die. You need to stop it.
Right, and have like no keratin production like at all in your body. Like, sorry, your skin's gone too.
My skin and hair fell out, but I didn't get COVID.
Oh my God. So the rest of they talk about how they're going to take all these issues into the classroom and talk about them, and that's a way to integrate the Bible into anatomy class. Like, you don't need to be talking about this. Like, it's an anatomy class. Like, what are you
Yeah.
teaching in your anatomy class besides this is the anatomy and this is how it works physiologically? Like there's no reason to bring this up in an anatomy class, especially at like a high school level where Answers in Genesis is trying to teach kids, like high school and under.
Hmm.
Like
Yeah.
at most, maybe you'd have like a clinical correlation, like, hey, this is some body part you learned about, and here's some medical fun fact that relates
Mhm.
to this. Like, that's at least in
Yeah.
my undergrad anatomy class, like, that's how it worked. Like, that's really the only discussion you had beyond the actual content.
Right. Right. Seriously, like, it shouldn't. Like if you have an anecdotal story that relates, sure, but like any of this, immediate massive red flag. I actually had that problem once. I took when in my undergrad, I took a physiology class, and like the professor was amazing, and it was the hardest fucking class we ever took. It was so insane. The curve was massive. One time, like everybody in the class got like a 40%, and so we all passed. And it's like nobody did well. It was so hard. But the person leading the labs was the worst. And one time she was talking about how, like, I can tell you all about how a baby develops, and I can tell you all about how this embryo become, but I can't tell you the magic of how the soul gets in there. And we were just like, we're gonna leave, right? Like, we're done. That's it. I can't continue with this. Because what the fuck are you doing? So many complaints were filed that day.
Oh, I bet. Like, that should
Because it's
just,
a real fucking university. That was
yeah,
a shocking thing to have happen. This person's whole ass class is that. Like, it's crazy.
yeah. Um, the teleological considerations, I don't think we need to read all of this like word for word, but I do want to get to the interesting stuff. So they make the watchmaker argument, and that sets up why they need to include the watchmaker into their classroom. So
Yeah,
they
if
say
you
in
include teleology in any part of your fucking medical school, run.
right. In recent years, the teleological argument has gained prominence in the scientific community as advances in microbiology have revealed the incredible complexity of the micromachinery of the cell. Even more compelling is the discovery that the basic structure of the universe, including the laws of nature, the constants of physics, and the initial distribution of matter and energy, is extraordinarily balanced to support life on Earth.
What? What? You
This went all
tell
over
me
the
you
place.
don't know what those things are without fucking telling me. Like that, the teleological argument gaining great prominence in the scientific community. That sentence is hilarious. And then also talking about fucking, is that Daniel Craig? Hold a second. I'm sorry. I'll finish that thought in just 1 second. I just have to check something really quick. Did she what? She cited William Lane Craig for that sentence. Okay, yeah, no, I just had to be sure. All right, so she's saying that the teleological argument is gaining great advance prominence in the scientific community, which is fucking
No,
a
it's
nutty
not.
thing to say.
It's not.
It never has. And like we actually, dude, we went out of our way to talk about in biology, we call it orthogenesis. We don't call it teleology, but it means the exact same thing. And so it's, upright production, basically, and it is something that you learn about so that you know to avoid it. Is it gets you out of that way of thinking that early evolutionary biologists has, where like, okay, well, if this thing exists, then it must have some purpose. It has to evolve this way on purpose, as it, and you don't realize there's spandrels, there's deleterious mutations, there's shit that just sticks around because there's no selection pressure against it. There's all sorts of shit that's like not perfection in evolution. And so we have orthogenic thinking in the biological side, and the archaeological and anthropological side. That's where we've heard the word. I've got the word teleology quite a bit. And like in both fields, like we took a whole semester in archaeological theory. We went against teleological arguments, and we're like, here's why human beings, human bodies, human societies, none of it is perfect. None of it, every single part of it has flaws. get away from that fucking idea that all these, every indigenous culture was this pristine paradise and then fucking civilization ruined it, like fucking Jean-Jacques Rousseau shit. Like, everything about that, when it comes especially to biology and humanity, very, very no. And then the rest of that is talking about the fucking this extraordinary balance of life on Earth, and it's just the fucking it's the puddle thing. Like, if we are perfectly adapted for this planet wasn't fucking built around us. And as proof of that, if you don't believe that, here's my entire body, all 6'2", 200 pounds of me. Here's all of me. If I do that, this little bit of it, I die. This little bit of me is, all of this is irrelevant if I can just cover this 2 holes, or 3, I guess, right here. You tell me, right, if you're God and you're like, I'm going to make this world perfect for humans, I'm going to make sure they absolutely need oxygen, so then I'll give it to them. Why not just make them not need it? Why not make it so that we can utilize the nitrogen, which is 70% of the atmosphere, instead of oxygen, which is only 20%? Why? What? Oh, they absolutely need water, and they have to be constantly flushing shit through their bodies and producing waste. Why make that a necessity? Why have that be a thing?
And the fun thing of like, oh yeah, I'm gonna make these humans perfect. They can, apart from the fall, and I'm gonna give them this whole garden of like all of these plants that they can eat. Oh wait, they can't digest cellulose without these little bugs inside.
What about bacteria? Yes, exactly. Like, it's so fucking convoluted, and it's every single part of it is, yes, there's this horrible problem where you need food, where you need air, you can't digest this, you can't live in this situation. But then there's this thing that God made that made it special. God should be a politician. Create a problem and then invent the solution, and you'll be millionaire every time. Like, it's
right.
So dumb.
Yeah, it's an absolute mess. And I don't know if we need to read the whole teleological section that they have, because it's
right.
Actually, I do kind of want to read this paragraph because they mentioned the femur.
I thought you would. I saw the heading and I'm like, would be surprised if he skips this shit.
Yeah, we'll go through this. I'll skip over a lot of the philosophical stuff, and we'll focus on the anatomical stuff. Moving from the big picture of the universe to the individual human person, the structures and mechanisms of the human body demonstrate features of purposeful design and engineering. Yeah, these design features have been copied by scientists, engineers, and architects in useful ideas and technologies for the welfare of mankind. For example, the marvel of engineering observed in the vibration mechanisms of the tympanic membrane and ossicles of the middle ear led to principles used in the design of microphones and loudspeakers for voice and music transmission. Anything
and the fucking spatulae on fucking gecko feet have been used in nanotechnology, and fucking like the scales on morpho butterfly wings have been used to develop better TVs and shit. No part of this is glorifying your God. All of it is glorifying nature. Nature made this incredible thing, and so we attempted to replicate it and made something shittier. Like, that's it.
Imagine, like, it's funny how they make those claims, but then it's like, yeah, we learned about physics. Like, physics caused the stuff to be the way that it is, and since that's the way physics worked, we learned that and said, hey, I can also do this thing with physics, because like, surprise, like, this is how sound works. Like, you're not going to be able to design something completely differently. Like, I can't design something to be like my foot and then be like, yeah, this is a sound transmission device. Like, that's physics. Like, I don't know where they're going. Where they're going with
so bizarre. It's so bizarre, dude.
And they're going to go into blood clotting next, that's a whole fun thing. If you want to talk about things that are not perfect in design at all, the coagulation cascade is a nightmare.
You mean the 80,000 steps of blood clotting?
Right.
That's not a simple, perfect design.
Oh yeah, no, and it's the funny thing too is, I guess I'll read this and then I'll get my point about Fibrin. The protein fibrin, essential for the process of blood clotting, is a useful model for the design of strong elastic materials. Maybe, but like, here's the thing too with the clotting cascade. So you go through like the stages of education on different subjects. Like in undergrad, you learn a very basic flow chart for the coagulation cascade. And you're like, okay, this is, this is a little confusing, but kind of makes sense. You get to med school and you're like, all right, this is a lot more complicated than I thought it was. Like, okay, all these steps like overlap each other and stuff. And then you start hearing from hematologists and they're like, "Oh yeah, just
Mhm.
ignore the whole fucking cascade because it's wrong. Like that model is like completely wrong
Yeah.
and everything's just a mess." Like, cool. Thank you hematology. Love you.
Neato.
Yeah. Uh the We'll read about the femur next. Mathematical modeling of the femur revealed that its trabeculae function effectively as a series of studs and braces. Thus, the exquisite design of the femur became the basic model for the magnificent architectural design of the Eiffel Tower. Is
Did it?
did the Eiffel Tower, was it based on a human femur?
I don't know because there's no fucking citations. As this entire fucking paragraph has 2 sentences that are cited.
The femur is also absolute shit because it's got a very specific blood supply, and there are well-known, actually, like, not too rare of conditions where you get avascular necrosis of the fibular head in children. There's one that comes when they're like between ages of 5 and 7, and then
Mm.
one that happens when they're in their teenage years, and the only thing they present with is like a painless limp, and you're like, "What's going on?" The kid's limping, probably sports or something. You find out they're getting no blood flow to their femur, so it's absolutely uh not well designed. The femur's pretty terrible.
Okay, no, apparently the Eiffel, like the human femur actually was an inspiration for the
Okay,
design of the Eiffel Tower. Specifically they're showing like parts up around the
interesting.
head of it, but like that is
Okay,
apparently what the artist had in mind. Neat. I didn't know that. I wish you would have cited it.
right?
Also, none of that is proof of design. That's not evident. You just gave me a fun architecture fact. I learned a neat thing about
Nice.
sculptures. Cool.
And you told us that
Neato
humans are
bandito.
capable of designing something in that way.
Yeah,
Humans,
good. Very interesting. I wish that the human femur was as resilient as the Eiffel Tower.
right? Anatomy and physiology are typically studied from a mechanistic approach, which examines processes or mechanisms, the how of a system or event. By contrast, a teleological approach addresses the why of a system. What's the goal or purpose? Why does this structure exist? Why does this process occur? This is terrible because you're
That's
starting with the
not
conclusion. That's not what we
that you
do.
know. Right? Exactly. That's dude, I remember watching because I love that like when I speak colloquially about things, even today at the very beginning of this call, I talked about, like I love to study evolution and why we are the way we are and things like that. But that's a colloquial way of saying things. Like you never fucking deal with why. That's never a thing. I remember Richard Feynman, he had that series called Fun to Imagine. And there was he would just sit there in a chair and just talk all happy about, oh, when you think about a rubber band and you think about the polymers are all stretched out and the other atoms are banging on these polymers to kink them out of shape. And that's why you have tension in the rubber band. You think about it, it's so beautiful and so fun and wonderful. And then one time the interviewer asked him, why does something happen? It was some random question. Like, why does this do that? And he got like actually fucking mad, like visibly mad in the video. He's like, I can't tell you why. Why are you asking that question? What is that? I have no idea why. I'm here to tell you how. And like, that's how fucking science works. Why is there silly, ridiculous fucking question? It's very subjective. So like speaking to you and me, like we're just here on a stream talking about whatever, sure, I'll throw around the word why. But in a fucking academic paper, like you have to be so careful about things like that. And you can't speak this way. Like that's not how anything works.
Right, like why does a human body work? Because I like to say evolution makes things just good enough. Like because it
Yeah.
works. It works.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
why it is the way it is. Because the organisms that had that feature lived.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Cool.
Dope. Pretty much the long and short of it is oh my gosh.
Yeah.
You're telling me that a perfectly formed human just evolved from a chicken one day? Oh, of course, yes.
That's a that's an interesting take on it.
I've heard some shit, bro.
Yeah, I bet. Uh, they just keep talking more about that. So here we go. Major themes in the systems of the body, evidence for design. I'm ready to hear this evidence because we've had
Yeah, it's
none thus
nothing
far.
but claims thus far, seriously.
So the recurring themes.
Just
Recurring
really,
themes
really
appear.
quick.
Oh, yeah.
Really quick before I'm sorry, just really quick. In this whole first paragraph, I haven't read it, I just glanced over it. 2 sentences have citations, and they're the same citations.
Yes. Key recurring themes appear in each of the human body systems. These themes include A, the direct relationship between structure and function, B, the role of homeostasis and negative feedback control for precise functioning, C, the interdependence between the parts of the body, and D, the concepts of order, organization, and integration in the human body systems. We should take these point by point because I have thoughts.
This is more your wheelhouse than mine. I encourage you.
Yeah, okay. So structure and function are related again because the laws of physics. You have to have something with structure in order for it to work a certain way. Why doesn't a
Mhm.
pulley work the same way that a ramp does? Because they're different objects.
Right.
Like, okay, I'll give them that. Like, and that's something that we talk about in medicine too. That structure and function are related. Yeah, I agree with you there. There's one thing in this whole article that I agree with them. The role of homeostasis and negative feedback control for precise functioning, which is a nightmare because homeostasis within itself is very, very nuanced to talk about. And
Mhm.
same thing with negative feedback control. And in fact, like I'm going to talk a little bit here about compensation because here's my question as well for the theists and their point of view on this. But if the human body was perfect, would there be any need for compensation? Why do we
Right.
have compensatory mechanisms? Like I hear people say, well, the body's so great because God planned out that it could heal itself and that it could compensate when things go wrong. You shouldn't need to compensate for anything.
Right.
The fact that God supposedly gave you this backup plan shows that there was a way for it to mess up in the first place, and these these feedback control mechanisms and these backup plans are often terrible. A great example is with metabolic alkalosis. There are because anytime you're moving in and out ions within a cell, most of them are done by exchange mechanisms, and one of the big ones for bicarb is chloride. So you spit out chloride and you keep in bicarb. And if you're in metabolic alkalosis, uh, especially from gastric causes, you get pancreatic secretion of bicarb, which then some of it ends up being reabsorbed and stuff. And then your kidneys uh, can compensate additionally to the lungs because the lungs are going to be a primary compensation, but the kidneys will also help with that. But if you have a lot of chloride and also a lot of bicarb, you get into this problem where your compensation makes your alkalosis worse because
Mhm.
now you're trying to get rid of chloride, but you're keeping more bicarb. So it ends up ruining itself even more. So human compensation sucks. Feedback control can also suck. Do you have any thoughts on that
I,
particular one?
I would say that also like you also have autoimmune disorders that you should factor into that. And like
Absolutely.
you literally your body is eating itself. It thinks it your body thinks that your own body is an external threat. And so you're just gonna attack your own thyroid until your eyes bulge out of your head, and that's just what's gonna happen now. Cool, perfect design. Really make sure that you know how loved you are. Yeah, no,
Yeah,
I
why?
have
Yeah,
like why is that a
molecular
thing?
mimicry. And
Yeah.
molecular mimicry with that, like, could you design like the binding sites on antibodies and T cells, etc., and to distinctly recognize self versus non-self? And could you then make sure that there aren't overlaps, that there aren't identical or similar enough binding sites on a bacterium or whatever and your own cell? Because that's what you get with MS. You have the same binding, and so that's why you get the autoimmune disease. So you'd think that if God made them to be identifiable, you would not get cross reactivity at all.
Right. It's bizarre.
Yeah.
Do you want to go through the rest of the A, B, C, and D here first, or like actually, let's do that because I have something I want to throw in at the end of this. After we're done
I'll
with A,
cover
B, C,
it
and D.
quickly. Interdependence between
No,
parts
it's
of the
fine.
body is like not a whole lot I need to talk about with that one, because I don't really debate that entirely. The concepts of order, organization, and integration in the human body systems. The human body systems compete with each other all the time. So like they're not in they work together to an extent, but there's a reason why in the hospital setting, cardiologists and nephrologists are constantly fighting over proper dosages of Lasix, because like one party's trying to diurese the fuck out of somebody, and the other one's like, no, please spare their kidneys. Like, do you want the heart to fail or do you want the kidneys to fail? Because they're gonna pick one of them. Like, they don't agree. So it works together for the most part when nothing's going wrong, but as soon as something hits the fan, now they're all in competition and you're just going to go to shit. So that's my thought on all those. Go for it.
Yeah. I just wanted to throw out that in that section, like we said a second ago, there are 2 sentences that have citations in this entire paragraph, and the citations are the same. In that section that you just read about why there's all these systems in the body that perfectly prove design, she cites, what is that one? Gillen 2001. Gillen 2001 is The Human Body and Intelligent Design. Then she cites Gillen, Sherwin, and Knowles. That one is Body by Design. And then she has the other one there at the bottom is Kaufman, 1995. Kaufman, 1995 is, where are you? There you are. Anatomical Evidence for Creation and Design in the Human Body. So, like, those are her sources for saying that the body is perfectly designed. And this person is teaching medicine. I can't handle that.
Yeah, she goes on to talk about how she challenges students to consider whether the principles favor creation with its concept of design and all that stuff. Like, okay, so here's my huge problem with this. Like, when you teach any science at all at this overly simplified level, you can logic whatever you want about, this makes more sense, but you're not actually studying the material. The deeper you go, the more nebulous a field gets. And Forrest, this is something that you'd probably cringe at. There was a time recently where I tweeted about like the evolution being nuanced, a nuanced discussion, and people were like, evolution's not nuanced. I was like, okay, you probably have like a very minimal understanding. Like, you haven't taken anything above an undergrad level class on biology, because every field in science is nuanced. There's a reason why doctorate programs exist for this, and why evolutionary biologists argue with each other constantly about what the right answer is.
Oh, that sucks so bad, because that is the thing, is that like it very, very often, like anytime I talk about anything, it's when it comes to biology, when it comes to sex versus gender, when it comes to this anything, that is the argument, is, well, I fucking learned all the way back in 8th grade that this is how it is. It's like, right, you know that there are more classes after that, right? It goes beyond 8th grade. Do you really think that all these people in these PhD programs just sitting around like, yep, just exactly what I learned in 8th grade, that's what it is.
Right.
It's like, if I tell you that there's 3 states of matter, solid, liquid, and gas, sure, if I teach that to a middle school or even maybe a high school classroom, that's perfectly fine. That's good enough. It's not fucking true. There's a 4th one called plasma, and if you look at an actual phase diagram, there's like a triple point where it's all 3 of them at the same time, and like What the fuck does that? How does that fit into your whole system? It's not a trinary. It's not just those three. There's weird fuzzy gray area between those three, and there's points where it's more than one at the same time, and there's extra steps and other one, and it depends on where your elevation is. The pressure has a huge detail on like what is what, and like. If you're gonna sit here and seriously tell me that no, god damn it, there's only 3 states of matter and it's this one and this one and that's all it can possibly be, you're gonna look silly. And it's the same thing with this. If you're gonna sit here in front of people with any kind of education and say no, there is no nuance. It is only this and this. This is the only way that life works. I'm sorry, you're missing out on the most amazing parts of biology if you think that life is simple. It is favorite. No part of biology is basic biology.
Right. Like my favorite thing in discussions with people, I like to use a very medical school method to get to people, and you just ask very simple questions that assess their understanding of the content. And like for things about biological sex, I love when people say, "Oh, well, but the Y chromosome," and like, but S or Y. If you have S or Y, then obviously you're gonna be male. And like, but what does S or Y code for? And then they can't describe the rest of the pathway. Which actually, like, there's a case study I'm gonna go through. I want to start having more journal clubs on my channel because I think it's fascinating. But there's a case study of somebody who is as I initially thought, like before I read it, it was someone who is XY SRY translocation. But no, this was somebody who was an XY female who had a successful pregnancy and passed on the XY female to the baby.
You're talking about the Sawyer syndrome?
Yeah, except it technically like wasn't, because it was not an SRY translocation. It was some other, I don't know if they figured out which gene it was.
It was some other epistatic event or something upstream.
Yeah, it was something else. Because most of the genes that factored in were all typical of what you'd expect for a biological male. So they were primarily XY. I think only like less than 10% of their ovarian tissue had XX. So it was like very minute mosaicism. But it was a wild case study that I'm gonna show on my on my channel at some point.
Because that shit can happen backwards. Like you can get fucking De La Chapelle syndrome where you have SRY translocation onto an X, and then you have XX allosomes and a male phenotype, and you don't even need the translocation. There are cases of De La Chapelle syndrome where you have a same exactly like that. You have an epistatic event upstream where you don't have the SRY, but you still develop a penis and testes because everybody has the genes for both. And fucking that's what gets me is you've got, was it chromosome 17 has fucking SOX9, which gives you testes, and then on your X you have to have, I think it's NR0B1 that has to turn off SOX9 so that you get ovaries, and then you have to turn it the fuck back on with the fucking Y chromosome. And it's like, what's going on with SRY specifically? And it's like, you have this complicated back and forth with 15 different ways that anything can go wrong. You have people with SRY, with XY chromosomes who develop a uterus. You have people without it that develop a penis. So like, you have fucking Giva Doce people. We talked about them on like the last line or whatever, where you fucking just, who knows, in puberty, you might get acne, you might get a deep voice, you might get a penis. We'll see what happens. Like, what? How can anybody look at that and seriously say, no. It's just these two simple, very cut and dry. It can't be all these things. Like,
Thank you for the super.
Thank you for being here.
Yeah. But yeah, none of this is simple. Like, absolutely none of it is.
It pisses me off to no end when especially when people with an education in this stuff say that, there's 15 different ways that we categorize and define sex. Not a single one of them has only 2 options. Therefore, it is a strict binary.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm going to read this next paragraph because it just talks about structure and function, and they mention the kidney, which everybody in my chat knows that I could spend days talking about the kidney, so I'm not going to get into that because I love the kidney. I love it so much. But we're going to skip over to this evolutionist.
My man walks around with a fucking container of salt just to be safe.
Yes, good. So definitely want you to be able to address this, the
Yeah.
evolutionist claims. In contrast, evolutionists have attempted to eliminate the design explanation for human structures by pointing to structures that appear to be poorly designed.
I mean, I
Evolutionists,
do feel a little bit called out because that was exactly what I was going to do today.
yeah, evolutionists reason that poorly designed structures provide compelling evidence against creation because an all-powerful and all-knowing designer could not be responsible for bad design or useless structures. Vestigial structures, for example, are a classic argument for evidence of poor biological design. Darwin
That's not
described
what
these.
Darwin said. That's not what Darwin said.
Darwin described these rudimentary organs as structures that once served a function necessary for survival in our evolutionary past, but over time the functions of these structures became diminished or non-existent. Do you have any thoughts so far?
So far, like it's nothing more than what we covered. We're saying that, like, it's okay. So if God is a designer, then that he's fucking insane. Like, it's why run the vagus nerve all the way down to my fucking heart and then make a recurrent laryngeal branch that has to go all the way back up? That makes perfect sense when you study the evolution of humans and when you look at us from fish to man, so to speak, which I know is their favorite fucking phrase. When you actually look at that evolutionary pathway, that tracks, because evolution is a tinkerer, not an inventor. It can't just unplug the cord and plug it back in somewhere else. It has to stretch the cord to be 30 fucking feet long, which is bad design. Design should be simplistic, not waste resources. Why? What the fuck? Why are all prostates stupid? They're not even prostates, fucking urethras. All urethras are stupid. All of them. Every single one is terrible. They're too thin to begin with. Also, mine runs through my prostate. So if I get any kind of inflammation, swelling, infection, damage here, I'm not going to be able to pee, which is going to destroy my bladder and kidneys and back up toxic waste into my fucking blood until I fucking turn yellow. I'm going to have a problem, right? Just from that one issue. Not to mention the fact that mine is fucking 3 times longer than my wife's. So she doesn't have the prostate to worry about. She has perfectly good pelvic floor muscles, so she doesn't need this for flow control, but it's that fucking long. So she's going to get urinary tract infections all the time because she's got this half an inch fucking leading up to her fucking renal system. And then on top of that, if she ever has a child, it's going to destroy her pelvic floor muscles, so she's going to pee herself every time she fucking coughs. Why do that? Why not make a pipe that makes sense for everybody? Why do we have to have redundant, ridiculous, full of problem pipes? I don't get it. God's a shit plumber, is all I'm saying. If God exists, God's a shitty plumber. I could go on, but she said we would do this, and I don't want to give her the satisfaction.
Yeah. And, of course, she lists a bunch of structures that are not actually vestigial and saying that, well, but they once thought these were vestigial, and now we don't think that they are. So that means God would, yeah. I want to talk about DNA.
I just saw something up ahead, and I don't want to spoil it, but I'm going to poop my pants. Continue on with DNA,
which paragraph, so I can make sure
it's in the interdependence of body parts. The paragraph just to the right of this one.
Oh, okay. We might get to that soon because
we don't even have to read it. I just want to point out one little chunk of it. But by all means, tell me about DNA.
Yeah. Examples of poorly designed structures cited by evolutionists include the seemingly backwards wiring of the retina. Yeah, it's terrible.
It's really bad. Yeah, that's the whole. Yeah.
Junk DNA. So most DNA is pretty terrible.
It's a significant amount of it.
The human spine, the pharynx, the prostate gland, and the convoluted courses of the recurrent laryngeal nerve. So yeah, we addressed that.
Well, fucking, you talk about junk DNA and shit, and what we're talking about, generally speaking, is DNA that we don't understand the function of. Like, it doesn't necessarily mean it is definitely redundant and pointless. Like, for example, whenever you want to make a mature mRNA strand, like whenever you want to express a gene. So you have the two major steps. You have transcription, changing the DNA, reading the DNA and producing stable RNA. And then you translate that RNA into a protein. But that's the central dogma. There's actually a bunch of other steps in the middle there. One of them being you have to take that RNA and make it a mature strand of mRNA, of messenger RNA. You have to make it something actually be read. And the way you do that is this stretch of RNA has introns and exons. The exons are the parts that actually need to be read. The introns need to be cut out and removed before this DNA or this RNA can actually be translated into a protein. So you read the DNA, you now have this template, then you cut out a bunch of chunks from the middle of it. You have to remove the introns and then splice all the exons together to now have a shorter template that can then go on to become a thing. And so, cell biologists and geneticists have tried, what if we just take out all the fucking introns early? What if we remove them before this process, that we remove them from the DNA itself? Wouldn't that speed up the process? And it does, but you have other problems down the line later because those introns are useful for other things. They're not useful for this gene expression. They're useful for some other gene expression. They can be the source of new things. And so, when we talk about junk DNA, there's vestiges there. There's leftover pieces of DNA that never get expressed in anybody because they're just leftover from evolution. But a lot of the time when that term is used colloquially, which why the fuck would you put a term like that in a scientific paper at all? A lot of the time, what we're talking about is just we don't know what this does yet, and we're still learning about it. No part of that is evidence for anything besides the fact that there's more research to be done. And saying that we were wrong before about a thing, and that means God is real now, is a crazy thing to say. Because even if you could disprove every single thing about evolution and show that DNA is actually 100% perfect, every single letter of the 3 billion nucleotides that you have in your DNA, every single one of them is absolutely essential. Great. That is not one single bit of evidence for an external creator outside of space and time that can whip up new species ex nihilo. That is not evidence for that thing. Proving one thing wrong is not the same as proving another thing right. X equals 0 does not mean Y equals 1. And I don't get why that is so difficult.
Yeah.
Sorry,
what do you want to say? But
we can
we can skip because you wanted to mention the interdependence between body parts, so we can cover that one while we're.
I don't actually want to mention interdependence between body parts. I just want to mention that in that section, she repeatedly cites fucking Michael Behe. If you'll notice at the bottom of the first paragraph there, Behe 1996. I guarantee that's Darwin's black box. That she. Let me just double check here. Behe 1996. Yup, Darwin's black box. That's what she's citing. A book that has been thoroughly and repeatedly debunked by people who know what the fuck they're talking about. Darwin's black box is the book where Behe introduces the concept of irreducible complexity. And he says that blood clotting is so incredibly complex that it never could have possibly evolved. All those pieces have to be there at once, despite the fact that we have mountains of papers about the evolution of fucking blood clotting and several species that do it in slightly different ways, showing a gradient and a form the same way we do with eyeballs. He also says that flagella are irreducibly complex. Nope. He also says that oh god, some other it's like 15 different things. I made a video about the argument from complexity on my YouTube channel, and we talked about it because Behe's still pushing the same shit. And there's the whole fucking it was the something Dover trial. I can't remember, but there's a trial about teaching intelligent design and whether intelligent design is actual science. And they brought Behe up on the stand, and he's up there saying and the people ask so are you saying there's no literature, there's no scientific research behind how this could have evolved? And he's like, yes, there's this dearth of evidence. We don't know anything. Yes. Kitzmiller versus Dover. Thank you, chat. Kitzmiller versus Dover trial, where this dude is sitting there and he's like, can you honestly say, Dr. Behe, that there's no evidence for this? And he's like, yeah, of course. And the prosecutor just goes, okay. And he walks over and just gets a stack of fucking textbooks and just puts it in front of Behe. And he walks over again, gets another stack of fucking textbooks and puts it in front of him. And he goes over and gets another stack. And it's one of those fucking Scopes monkey trial moments of just like absolute perfect theater. And pretty soon there's this, like, Behe's gone. Just this massive amounts of fucking books that he's peeking around. It's like, every single one of those details out the evolution of the thing that you said isn't real. Maybe you should start by reading those. Like, oh, it's insane that this dude is still being cited. When was this published? This was published in 2018.
2018. Yep.
And she's citing fucking a book from 1996 that literally just says, I don't know how this happened, therefore it must be God. That's the whole book. Like, wow. That kills me, dude.
Yeah.
That fucking kills me. This person teaches doctors. This person teaches doctors.
And this is funny that with their whole interdependence between body parts thing, I've read other Answers in Genesis articles that have claimed that that if you were to take away one organ, that the human's not going to function. And these people have not studied embryology. Like, the lungs do not work until you need them when you're out of the uterus. So like, you can have body parts that don't function and you can still exist.
Yep. You just change the environment, because that's the whole point of evolution, is when you gain fitness in one environment, you lose fitness in another environment. Fitness is not like this ladder where you can be the most fit forever and you're the perfect organism. There is no peak of evolution. That's not how it works. It's entirely fucking contextual. Every single thing is contextual. The terms beneficial or deleterious are contextual on the situation that they're evolving in. Like, a mutation that destroys your eyes is deleterious for you or I. It is beneficial for a blind cave fish because they live in the dark and they don't need their eyes getting damaged or infected or hurt or anything. They're useless. So get the fuck rid of them. It's beneficial that way. Like, this, it never fucking ceases to amaze me how the whole argument here is, I can't explain X, therefore Y is real. And like, that's not how fucking thinking works.
Yeah. I'm curious about their I don't even know if they're going to expand on homeostasis and negative feedback. Oh, they're talking about body temperature. Oh man, I can go on a rant about body
the whole
temperature.
point of that being fucking like thresholds and triggers and desperately trying to regulate, and how like 90% of the calories you take in go to just wasting energy, keeping you at 98.6 degrees.
Right. Yeah, like all of that inefficiency of metabolism. And also, like, have these people, I'm asking this rhetorically because I know the answer. Have they studied heat stroke and the physiology of heat stroke? Because like this was something that was very highly talked about in med school, was the difference between a fever and heat stroke, because the difference is regulation of set points. Because a fever, you intentionally, the brain raises the set point for you to function at a higher temperature to kill off whatever infection, and then it will reset the set point to where it would normally be. Heat stroke, it's different because now you've taken away the set point and it just is unregulated now. And so you can keep going up and up and up, and you're just going to degrade your proteins and all that. So if you have any damage to the thalamus, you can alter those set points, and you have different areas of the thalamus that relate to, it's like the thalamus is not even neatly organized either, because like you have hunger centers in like one part of the thalamus, and like something like you have things that should be together in the thalamus that are on completely different parts of the thalamus. And so like, this one's for cooling, this one's for heating, like way the fuck over here, and they're totally different areas of the thalamus. Like, why can't these be the same area? I don't know. But yeah, it's clear they don't really study uh, the nuance of homeostasis and feedback control. It's
No, of
very
course not.
complicated. Even
That would
and
be
even with
hard.
homeostasis, like fluid homeostasis, holy shit. Like if you want to get into some weeds, like study fluid dynamics in the human body, because like a lot of issues that we have, and especially a lot of the problems we get into with medicine and pharmaceuticals, is what is the consequence on fluid homeostasis, because like controlling what ions go in and out of a cell matters a
Yeah.
lot. Like refeeding syndrome is all about uh ion transport. So it's
I would
garbage.
love for these people to talk about Myotragus, which was
Mhm.
a cold-blooded goat that evolved on an island in, I think, the Mediterranean. So like we're talking about homeostasis here, we're talking about body heat and everything like that. This goat evolved cold blood, never before seen in a mammal. This guy figured out a new way to maintain homeostasis because it didn't need to waste energy the way that we did. It was actually beneficial for it not to do those things. Because like I was thinking about it, like if I'm sitting here right now, my house is around 70 degrees. So my body needs to maintain internal homeostasis. It stays up to 98 degrees. If I didn't have that function, all I need to do is turn up the heater, right? If we lived on a hotter planet, just be the temperature that it is outside, works just fucking fine. Just like maintain stability there. Here's an animal that actually was able to do that. And like, where does that fit into your thing about how like, no, the body needs to work on the, okay, well, it didn't. It did something very different than what you're saying it should be able to do. What are you talking about?
Right. Yeah,
Oh,
there's so much repetition within these. I don't know if we're gonna get to like all of those points. I think I kind of want to maybe this will be the last thing we cover, unless there's something else I can. Yeah, the rest of it just goes into the stewardship and design, like encouraging spiritual applications, which I don't think we need to spend a whole lot of time on. I want to read about over design and
yeah,
what they
yeah. I
mean
was
by
actually
this.
going down. I was going down to
Yeah.
that exactly one. Like I wanted to hear about what the fuck
Yeah.
that is.
Overdesign denotes design features in humans that go far beyond what is needed to survive. Evolutionists cannot explain overdesign because evolution asserts that every aspect of design must have arisen due to a specific survival advantage. No, what? No.
No, we fucking don't. That's not how that works. What's crazy is that's as much as she fucking called us out a minute ago. This is exactly what we were saying a minute ago as well. Is that people who don't understand how evolution works tend to think that that's what evolution's all about, and it's fucking not. And it kills me that this is the direction this is going in. Again, that this is the evolutionists think this one again. Even if this made half a bit of sense and everything about evolution was wrong and we completely throw it out, sweet. The only thing this could possibly say then is I have no explanation for biodiversity. That is the entire argument you have now. You haven't done a single thing to back up creationism. Ugh.
In the classroom, I highlight examples of overdesign that are unique to the human body, including the following: upright stature. This is a claim. This is a fun
What?
claim. Every part of the human body is fully designed for upright movement. You've not studied? Speaking of kinesiology from the college that
Tell
you
that.
supposedly teach at,
Exactly.
I've taken biomechanics and kinesiology. I've taken 2 semesters of biomechanics and kinesiology. And
Yeah.
no, it's not designed for upright
Allow me to
movement at
introduce
all.
you to our body. Allow me to introduce you to our friend, the spine, which fucking wears out like shit. Have you heard of a sacroiliac nerve? That's that thing holding together for you. Like that's what crazy. Like it's talking about how like we can't assert how like we fucking developed upright movement. Bitch, I've got. Hold on a second. I've got it right over here because I was just fucking teaching out of this the other fucking day. Here is an introductory textbook in bioanthropology. And we're just going to go ahead and look up bipedalism really quick, just for funsies. Here's bipedalism. Where are you? There we go. And here we've got bipedalism as a hominin characteristic. We're going to go ahead and jump to maybe page 338. That might be the one that we need. Because there is actually, I remember in this book, because I was just, like I said, I was just teaching about this just a minute ago. Like, there's this awesome graphic that actually just goes through. It just shows a human skeleton, and it just goes point by point. And it's like, here's one, here's one, here's one. Here's the part that makes it bipedal. Here's the part that makes it bipedal. Oh my glob. I don't want to waste any more time on this. I'm trying to find it, but I don't want to just sit here like an asshole and look through this book on your show. Suffice it to say, that's not fucking true. And I'll keep looking through this, and if I find it, I'll hold it up to the screen.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I mean, they just go on to talk about the massive interconnection between the brain and the hand muscles and how the hands are so versatile. Like, our hands are fine, but like I would argue maybe our hand structure isn't as good as some other animals, especially our feet structure aren't. Like a lot of other apes can climb stuff with their feet, and we can't grab things with our feet very well. So
if I had the fucking feet of like fucking like Ardipithecus ramidus, I could do all sorts of shit. I'd be unstoppable. Crazy.
Right. Yeah, I don't know what else is oh man, like some of these, like with the rest of the like spiritual applications, they are just priming students to make the conclusion first. Is they have questions that they ask in class, like what attributes of God are displayed through the design of these structures and functions. So you're begging the question there.
And you got it. There it is. So just comparing a human and a chimpanzee there, and just showing every single one of these bones from the foramen magnum to perfect. Yes, from the foramen magnum and the skull to the spine to the pelvis to the fucking the bichondral angle of the knee to the fucking that valgus knee to the foot to the fucking like it shows every single one of these pieces and details out exactly when these things came about and how they came about and how they all work together for the mosaic that is bipedal walking. Like literally just you give this to undergrads. Like this is the basics of this shit. And you're telling me that fucking we don't have an explanation for this and that this is something that's just too fucking difficult for us? Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, I think we've gotten to the end of their nonsense, but let's kind of finish out this show going through. We can go through their sources.
Yeah, seriously. I also want to point out that fucking Answers in Genesis also believes that all of the diversity of human skin coloration, hair coloration, like they're talking about racial characteristics, which by the way, race isn't a biological thing either, but whatever. They're talking about all the races of humans could have evolved or could have come about in one single generation from one single pair of middle brown people, which is what they describe Adam and Eve as. Adam and Eve were middle brown, and therefore, because they can do a fucking dihybrid cross, by the way, is how they prove this. Therefore, we're able to come up with all the different skin colors and hair colors and facial features and eye colors and every single part that we use to identify different races across. Like that is their fucking belief. So like, if you're going to sit here and say that like that this is real, you better throw out everything you fucking know about like, ties to for ethnicity and disease. If you think you know anything about sickle cell anemia, no, you fucking don't, because Adam and Eve, right? And if you think you know anything about fucking alcohol metabolism, no, you fucking don't, because Adam and Eve, right? And if you think you know fucking anything about epigenetics and why, indigenous peoples in the American Southwest have a problem with obesity, no, you fucking don't, because Adam and Eve, right? Like it's just, oh my God, dude. It's so fucking crazy.
Yeah, and for anybody in the audience who may believe this, I'm sure Forrest will agree with me. You cannot use a Punnett square for everything. Punnett squares are okay at an introductory level, right? But beyond that, they are very overly simplified ways to describe genetics. But
I dare the author of this article to define pleiotropy.
Right, right. Yeah, so we got sources here. We have a bunch of the ones that we've already discussed, but we have multiple citations from the Journal of Creation
The
and
first
Answers
source
Research
is
Journal.
the first source uses irreducible complexity. The very
Mm,
first one.
yep.
Darwin's black box, major problem in neo-Darwinism from the Creation Research Society Quarterly. I'm 99. Oh, excuse me. I'm 99% sure the Creation Research Society Quarterly is the one that what was his name? Kevin Anderson worked on. That was the guy who he was a microbiologist who published over and over and over and over and over and over again that if you tear down a wall in your house, that doesn't prove how the house was built, and therefore mutations can't prove evolution. He's
Yeah,
got
we've got
Answers in
oh man,
Research Journal.
we got Pocket Guide to the Human Body, intricate design that glorifies the creator, which is an Answers in Genesis publication, which I looked at,
Mm-hmm.
considering debunking it. We have
Gosh.
Shaping
He's
a
got
Christian Worldview, the Foundations of Christian Higher Education.
a scientific argument for the existence of God, the fine-tuning design argument in Reasons for Hope Within. What? That sounds peer-reviewed.
Yeah. What's the best proof of creation? By Ken Ham is cited.
Is Ken Ham is cited?
Yeah,
My
Ken Ham
God.
is cited. Uh, these are really really funny. Uh, yeah, I
Oh,
don't know, Forrest.
he's
Are you
he's using
convinced?
this. I'm certainly not. They've got a couple of slurs in here too. This one's from 2009 and from Answers in Genesis talking about hermaphrodism. Not
Oh,
sure that's one you want to throw around since it's citing the human body. That's a great word to use in biology, talking about other animals, but definitely not one that's appropriate for talking about what you're talking about here.
yeah.
Wow.
Nope. We do not use that
Like
term with humans.
2009, maybe it's at that point where they didn't know any better yet, but I feel like they probably did.
Yeah. So kind of debriefing on everything that we talked about today. Kind of what are your biggest takeaways for the people in the audience?
I'd say my biggest takeaway is at the very very beginning of this, you pointed out that like they're intentionally formatting this as if it's a scientific publication in a peer reviewed journal. But when you read not only what is written, but how it's written, and then go through the citation list here at the end, it should be abundantly obvious that this is not fucking real. This is somebody putting their theology, their personal, not even theology. That's theology is an actual study. This is someone putting their religious beliefs on paper, not giving you any reason to believe it, and then pointing to other people who believe the same thing that they do to try to make themselves sound credible. Um, this is proselytization. This is not an actual fucking scholarly work. And so, like, Elizabeth Sled may actually be a scientist, but what she has done here is not science. And like, maybe she's got a degree in something. Maybe she teaches something. Maybe she knows something that I guarantee she knows shit that I don't know about kinesiology. That sounds great. Or kinesiology. Pardon me. But about fucking kinesiology, I guarantee she knows stuff that I don't know. But I also guarantee that the way that she's applying her knowledge right now doesn't do either her or her institution or her field justice. Yeah, my biggest takeaway is that this is a damn shame.
Right. Like this is propaganda.
Yeah,
And it is calling for the indoctrination of students in a scientific field.
yep,
Which I mean, yeah, I mean if you want your students to not become evolutionists, that's kind of what you have to do because when you study the actual science, and this is something for me because I went into my biology degree as a young Earth creationist, and after like taking Gen Bio, I was like, huh. Like the first thing that got me was the way that they're teaching about evolution is not what I was told evolution was. And so right off the bat, I knew that I was told something incorrectly and
Mhm.
I had to adopt new information. And
Yeah.
it's very difficult to make it through a biology degree and still remain a young earth creationist. Uh
Because you learn how things fucking work. And that's what kills me is like this. It's not just that this person is very wrong, it's that this person is training people how to go save human lives with
mhm,
wrong information. And like if I'm going into like I as I said at the beginning, I'm not a doctor on purpose. And like if I had to make some critical decisions about somebody, I'm trained in first aid and shit. And like I've taken a bunch of biomed classes to understand human biology. I have information on how to like save somebody from choking. If I went into that situation and someone's choking to death and I'm like, I've learned this stuff, I know how to fix this, I'm going to pray instead. I would be a monster. I would be the most feckless, irresponsible person. I would do something wrong in that situation. And here's this woman saying, you know what? We have the information about how disease spread. We have the information about how illness works. We have the information about, but actually, it's from the fall, and it's all this.
mhm.
Really, it's actually there's only sex and gender are the same thing, and actually it's this and that, and just going against what fucking like the medical establishment says, and you're ill-equipping people to go help. You're
Mhm.
making bad doctors, and that I
Right.
can't imagine having a fucking school of auto mechanics where you teach people that SpaghettiOs is fuel because you believe it. You're making bad mechanics. It shouldn't be any difference here.
Yeah, and an issue here too is, and this is something that I talk about a lot, is the burden of responsibility. And
Mm,
people can say whatever they want when they don't bear any of the responsibility for what they say. And what is
yeah,
happening here is this person is teaching people who are going to be doctors, and if they mess up, if their poor reasoning causes somebody to get hurt, it's not this teacher that's gonna be hurt or
yeah,
thrown under the bus. The patient is going to be harmed. So a real
yep,
human is going to be harmed. And the person taking responsibility is that doctor who you
yep,
taught wrong. Like it
yep.
falls all on their shoulders.
Yep. Elizabeth
So,
Sled will not be sued because somebody fucking read this article and tried to apply it in an actual OR. Like that's yeah,
right. And this is
it
like,
sucks.
and I get so many people on call-in shows that will say that like they want to make abortion decisions for somebody else, or they want to make
Mm,
gender affirming care decisions for somebody else. I'm like, you're talking to me about this issue. Like if a patient needed this, like which one of us in this room right now is taking full responsibility of what happens to that patient? It's me. I am owning 100% of that responsibility. So maybe this is my decision and my patient's decision to make, and not you, the person that's never going to see responsibility for it.
right, right. It's just it's man, it's so fucking frustrating. And like what I keep trying to get across is especially with this, whenever I talk about answers in Genesis, what I keep trying to remind people is that like their modus operandi is to try to look as credible as possible and to try to
Mhm.
sound like they have any kind of fucking reason for you to believe them so that you can buy in just a little bit. And if you buy in just a little bit, then number one, you'll give them money. And number two, they'll then be able to sell you on the fucking crazy shit that they believe in. These people believe in dragons. These people believe in unicorns. These people believe in giants. These people believe in zombies. These people believe that donkeys and snakes can literally talk. These people believe that molecules of water can change into molecules of wine, literally. They've published it. They believe that fucking all human diversity came out of one generation of middle brown people. They believe that like there's a difference between observational and historical science, and anything that you can't watch happen from start to finish is a matter of religion no matter what. These people believe such hideously insane things about the natural world. And what they're doing with articles like this, where they format it this way with any of their publications, is not to try to convince you of all of that. It's to try to get you, it's just setting a massive trap to try to get you to buy in just that much
Mhm.
Just believe them a little bit and start doubting just a little bit and ignoring evidence just a little bit so that they can try to convince you to warp your understanding of, and I'm not exaggerating here, literally everything in biology and physics and geology and astronomy and chemistry, all to accommodate one single belief that they offer zero evidence for. And the evidence they have is, I read it in a book once. Like that's it. And like I'm saying this with such confidence because I literally just recorded a video about exactly this last night. I'm editing it today. It'll be published next week. But like, this Answers in Genesis is such an insidious and slimy organization because of shit like this. This person trains doctors, and I cannot fucking escape how horrible that is.
Yeah, yeah, and you said everything that I would say in my debrief as well. So what you got going on your channel this week, or anything else going on that you would like to show to the audience?
Yeah, sure. Like I said, I just recorded a video about Answers in Genesis, and their new Answers in Genesis just published a new video about how natural selection isn't the same thing as evolution. And it's fucking insane. It's really funny. And I just recorded a whole video about that last night, and I'm getting it edited right now, and it'll be out later this week. I've also got a video coming out before the end of the month about just kind of an introduction to bioanthropology, specifically asking the question of what makes us human. What is a human? And so like that's going to be a lot of fun as well. And if you'd like to learn more about me and what I do and follow my channels and all those things, you can do so by going to valkailabs.com. You can find my YouTube, my TikTok, my Patreon, my everything is up on there.
Awesome. And for everybody here, we are continuing my top surgery fundraiser throughout today. So after we're done here, normally we would have a Patreon after show, but we're not doing that today because I'm going to Twitch later on this evening. So come hang out over on Twitch. I'm playing some Civ 6, and it's going to be a blast. So I think I'm guessing somebody, I know I pinned the top surgery link in the side chat. If anybody's able to help out, it's greatly appreciated because it's very expensive, and insurance thinks it's cosmetic when it's an actually necessary procedure.
Does it blow your mind as a doctor that insurance companies get to make medical decisions this way?
Oh yeah, it's horrible. It's horrible.
That you can be like, hey, I went to school for a decade, and that means that I know that the patient needs this, and they're like, you can do a lower dosage. And
like, no, I can't though.
Yeah. And then they argue with you. Their job is not to provide medical care, but they get to do it. What is that? How is that not corrupt as fuck?
It's capitalism.
It is capitalism. Oh, that drives me crazy, dude.
Yeah, no, insurance is absolute garbage. And next week, I have to confirm the time again for Medical Myths, because we're on Aussie time for Medical Myths next week, because my special guest is Polymathic Jen, who used to be a Reiki master. So we're going to talk about some Reiki next week. So I hope everybody shows up to react to some Reiki videos.
We'll be healed.
Yeah, it's going to be fantastic. And I'm going to shout out once again the patrons. We have Regios, Jody L, Pharmacy Sabrina, Ellipsis, Tons of Mice, What the Beck, Haney Ball, and SG, and our channel member Rebus Wind. Thank you all for your support. Normally we do our after show. We're not doing that this week again because we're going to Twitch after this.
At least one of those people was on my Patreon as well, and that makes me very happy that we got this community.
Oh, awesome!
It's so cool.
Yes, everybody go follow Forrest on all of the social medias, and maybe you'll find us on another show together sometime. We'll see, and maybe Forrest wants to come back to Medical Myths at some point, because we have plenty.
Oh, maybe so
to talk about. But thank you everybody for joining us. Stay curious, and we'll see you all next time. Bye.